The UK and France are co-hosting a multinational meeting of defense ministers to try to restore trade flows through the Strait of Hormuz. More than 40 nations are expected to join the virtual gathering. Military planners met in London last month to discuss the practicalities of a multinational mission led by the UK and France. Though a ceasefire between the US, Israel and Iran has largely held maritime traffic through the strait, which usually carries a fifth of global oil supply, remains severely restricted. Washington says top American diplomat Marco Rubio had discussed efforts to restore freedom of navigation in the strait with his British and Australian counterparts separately, but gave no further details. Britain and France have begun deploying military assets to the region in preparation for a possible security mission. But Iran warned that the two nations that any foreign warships in Hormuz will meet a decisive and immediate response. The narrow strait remains in Tehran's chokehold as negotiations appear to be at a standstill. The Islamic Republic has warned Washington it should accept the latest peace plan or face failure. President Trump has rejected the proposal as, quote, garbage. And William Denselow is monitoring this story for CNA Live from Brussels. William, what are countries trying to build on from last month's talks?
Well, Paul, we've heard from John Healey, the UK Secretary of Defence. He says that this meeting is all about turning those ironclad diplomatic agreements that have been discussed and deliberated on amongst that coalition of over 40 nations that you mentioned into tangible military action, military and other logistical support in the future. So he is saying essentially that this is more than just rhetoric, this is more than just talk, this is turning this dialogue into concrete steps going forward to try and enable freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz going forward. The UK says that evidence of that is seen with the deployment of the HMS Dragon to the Middle East. They say that is a sign of the capabilities that the UK might be able to provide in the future. But Paul, a huge question is the fact that the UK and others say that they will only start to enact these kinds of parameters that they're discussing once conditions allow. Huge question marks remain what exactly those conditions will be, how safe the region needs to be, how quiet the Strait of Hormuz must be for this coalition to actually enact some of its pledges that it's making.
Now, Will, Iran has already issued a warning to Britain and France for deploying warships to the region. What are some of the key hurdles for any mission to Hormuz?
Paul, that's absolutely right. You mentioned that warning from Tehran. We see that the UK is sending this warship to the region. We also know that here in Brussels, that the European Council defence ministers are gathering to discuss exactly what European member states can do. There is the existing Aspidis mission for the EU, this deployment of warships currently deployed in the Red Sea. They're discussing whether there could be a change in mandate to even expand this operation and to allow it to include facilitating some degree of freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. But of course, there is that huge question of appetite. What risk, how risk averse is this coalition feeling when it comes to putting their vessels, potentially their forces, their equipment in harm's way to protect the Strait of Hormuz? Of course, we know that Washington has been calling for European allies and allies across the world to do more to try and get the Strait of Hormuz back open. But so far, we're hearing a huge degree of trepidation that they're only willing to do so once it's deemed safe. For Washington, that's simply seen as too little too late. We've seen that time and time again, drawing the ire of the Trump administration. But of course, as the energy crisis continues to escalate here in Europe and around the world, big pressure on other members of this coalition to take tangible steps. Paul?
Many thanks for that update. William Denselow for CNA in Brussels.